I like to bid a shalom to the bride of the Messiah, a shalom to the 144,000, and a shalom to the nation of Israel. For you are the bride of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shalom. Today is the Most High Shabbat day. Today is his 7th day. If you go to the video description box, you should have access to the Most High calendar, as well as to the books that we shall discuss in this word today. But when you click on his calendar link, and you will see we are in the moon 8th day, which is this 4th month. And we know that as the 4th month, which I had named Deleth, okay? Challenge to watch that video and find out why I named the 4th month Deleth. It is the sun's 4th month and 9th day. And as far as the heathen's day or Satan's day, it is June the 29th to June the 30th from sundown to sundown. And the phase of this day that the word is being given unto you is in the daylight phase of June 30th. You will also see on the calendar the day following after the 8th day of the moon will be a fast. Remember, the fast has 2 parts. You can choose to do what we call a earthly fast, that's dealing with abstaining from things of the light with your body, which is the tabernacle. But the greatest fast to do is more spiritual, because that fast will circumcise your heart, okay? Which goes to this title that we should talk about today, because y'all, as you know, before from the prior video, I am studying, check this out for a second. The Sealed Book of Mormon, and you will have access to that book. Again, click the video description box of this video where you can print it out, download it, or however you want to review this book. But we will be coming from this book today, as well as from the King James 1611, okay, as well as other books too. This is almost about to drop, okay? So the title of this word today, the veil must be removed. Excuse me, y'all, my tongue get twisted. The veil must be removed to be a to be a pure and pleasing people unto Yah. Okay, that's where it starts at. And before I begin in that word, I have to remind y'all, also check the video description box for the Most High prophetic word, for he speaks himself, because everything that I'm telling y'all relates. It all goes together so you can get the bigger picture. So those who have an ear to hear, those who have, excuse me, y'all, eyes to see, come and feast and hear what the living word has to say unto us. Because in order to be a pure and pleasing people unto the Most High Yah, that veil has to be removed. And we're going into the word today to understand what is that veil, what is the thing that separates us from the Most High Yah. Because I'm telling y'all, in this time, since this book has been released, which is the second part of the seal that has been released into us, it's given us greater information, giving us great information about was from the beginning to what is yet to come. Okay, there was nothing new under the sun, but it gives us understanding why these things could not come into their fullness. And again, it goes back to the veil. All right, so if y'all can open your Bibles, if you don't have a Bible, go to the video description box and click on the King James 1611 Bible. And I want you to go to 2 Corinthians, the book of 2 Corinthians. Okay? And I want you to go to chapter 3. And I'm trying to think, should I go to the Book of Mormon first to read that to you? Let me go to the Book of Mormon first. I do apologize. Okay. I have to get my notes in order so I can be a little organized for y'all today, so this word can flow so you can feast upon it. And I do apologize for that. All right. Go to the video description box and also click on the Book of Mormon. It is that first link. Don't click on the second link, but go to the first link. And we're going to the part that deals with the words of moroni. Okay? And we're going to look at the following scriptures. We're going to look at verse 5, verse 19, and verse 21. Okay? But I will read verse 2 because it's going to open to verse 5. Okay? Okay. Excuse me, y'all. Words of moroni. Verse 2. But behold, many shall believe the words of this book, and rejoice to know that it proceedeth out of the hand of Yahuwah, and from their eyes will fall the scales of the darkness that prevents them from seeing in their face the truth sent from the heavens to the children of men. And before many generations pass, they will begin to, I hope I pronounced this word right, coalesce in true knowledge, and they will become a pure and pleasing people in the sight of Yahuwah upon all the inhabited earth. Do y'all hear that? So, as you begin to get the understanding about this veil, that is a covering that covers our eyes as well as our ears when we're not here. And because of this covering, it prevents us to be pure and pleasing unto Yah. Okay. Now let us go to verse 5. Behold, the time come for you to wear this veil, that you to remain in this terrible state of iniquity, and hardness of heart and blindness of mind. For the words that come from this record, the sealed Book of Mormon, are like the hard tip of the mallet that shatters the hardness of the rock that covers your hearts, hardened by your traditions, as the fire of the refiner who refines and purifies the filth of his thoughts, stained by the precept of men. So now you'll get to understanding why the Most High Yah now has opened this book. A seal has been broken, y'all, by the Lamb. He opened up this book now because the time has come for us to receive his whole truth. The time has come for this veil to be torn that has separated us from Yah. We shall no longer have what? A hardened heart or be blind anymore. Okay? So I love the analogy that this book gives. It compared the sealed Book of Mormon to a hard tip of the mallet. And this matter, when it hits upon our hearts, it shall remove the hardness, and it shall remove the thoughts that was implanted in your heart by the precepts of men. Okay, so now we're going to see how all of these sacred books connect together. I will get to verse 21, but let's go to the King James 1611 Bible, because a lot of things I have preached unto you is all pointing back to that sacred one, to that promised seed. And now you're going to see how you too can remove that veil. Okay. Now, 2 Corinthians, we're going to chapter 3. I want to read the chapter summary unto you first. And then we'll start with verse 13 and read down to verse 18. The summary. Lest that false teachers should charge him with vainglory. He showeth the faith and graces of the Corinthians to be a sufficient commendation of his ministry, whereupon, entering a comparison between the ministers of the law and of the gospel, he proveth that his ministry is so far the more excellent, as the gospel of life and liberty is more glorious than the law of condemnation. Okay. Verse 13 of 2 Corinthians chapter 3. And not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Israel could not steadily fast look to the end of that which is abolished. But their minds were blind, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in the Messiah. Let us pause there for a second, y'all. Okay. Remember, I say, I've been preaching unto you that the carnal going hand with the spiritual. The Father often and His Son, Yahusha HaMashyach, often give us a carnal example so we can understand the spiritual messages and mysteries. So when we look at verse 13, you can find the witness, okay, in Exodus chapter 34, verse 33, because after Moses conversed with the Father, okay, because we know he went up to Mount Sinai, okay. When he came down, he was covered in the glory of Yah, so bright that the people cannot bear the light in it. Now, instantly, that should remind you, when one sin is revealed, what do most people do? We want to cover ourselves because we are ashamed, because we cannot bear our iniquities to be exposed in the light. Okay? We're going to talk a little more about this light too, this glory. All right? Because it's the same glory that our foreparents had, and I'm talking about Adam and Eve. They had this glory upon them. Okay? So when we look at verse 14, it goes on to say that their minds were blinded, for until this day remained the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in the Messiah. So this verse is telling you the only way to remove this veil that's keeping you from seeing, keeping you from hearing, keeping you from Yah. It can only be removed by that blessed one, the promised one, which was the same in the days of the sons of Adam. When you read the sealed book of Mormon, it gives you the history, it gives you what was done then. It's no different from now. But the majority, whether they was Gentiles, whether they was Israelites, they rejected this Holy One, the Holy One that comes from the Most High Yah. And once you reject Him, you shall remain in darkness. So it goes back to whether or not you receive the salvation, the righteousness of Yah. And it's not talking about, how can I describe this? Because most people looks at salvation as a thing, but it goes deeper than that. It's dealing with the Spirit. It's dealing with the one who comes from Yah, the one that bears his Father's name. And only through him can he take you out of darkness, which is bondage, and bring you into light, which is liberty, the freedom to worship the Most High Yah without being afflicted, oppressed, or vexed by Satan and his children. Okay? Let me go back to verse 1 to make sure I didn't miss anything else. I want to point this out in verse 13, that the children of Israel could not steadily look to the end of that which is abolished. What the Book of Mormon also teach you, what the children could not grasp, and what my ancestors could not grasp, they could not grasp the things that Torah, the law, okay, the law that came from heaven that was given unto Moses to give unto the children of Israel. They could not grasp what the law was teaching them, okay? And because they were stuck in that era of darkness, because they was so focused on the tasks of the law, they could not see what the law was teaching them. This is why the second Adam had to come. Because of the ones who was designated to lead and teach the people. Remember, that's two parts. We had a king and we had the high priest. They was destined what? One is to lead and one is to teach, the people, or lead the way to the Father. But because they was in flesh, they became a hindrance, a stumbling block. As the Messiah said unto them, they became kingdom blockers. They barred the way to the door, which is the left. They barred the way to the kingdom of heaven. Okay? So they couldn't understand this new covenant that we're in now. They can't get the now, okay? And they can't understand what was put an end to. And what the fathers were reminding me, they couldn't graduate to the higher spiritual level. Because it goes back of them receiving the tabernacle of witness, who is the Messiah. Even in the days of the sons of Adam, they couldn't grasp it. I'm talking about the majority of the people. They couldn't receive him. They wasn't ready. And the same thing with Israel. They couldn't receive him because they wasn't ready. And when you read the Book of Mormon, you will learn that they was given the lesser priesthood, not the greater priesthood, but the lesser priesthood. And when you read in this book, you will learn, because we tell you about the Father, he has a great divine plan. I mean, even though his people was not ready, he had another plan put in place so they can get ready. So with the lesser priesthood, I was seeking, I try to find it so I can read it unto you. Bear with me. Make sure it's not in this chapter. It was to lead them to the greater. Okay. I don't think it's in that chapter. Let me go to the other one. Bear with me, y'all. I usually have all my notes put together so you can have them. Let me go to the beginning part. Here we go. Let's see here. Here we go. Thank you, Father. Hallelujah. When you go to the Book of Mormon, dealing with the 12 apostles of Moses in the Promised Land, it would go on to tell you this. Okay, give us an understanding about this lesser priesthood that we received by my ancestors. And I'm in verse 21. Of the remainder, even to their children, whom I will preserve under the age of 20. Now, this is the time he's speaking unto them in the wilderness after the spies come back and give their report. So this is the time frame that we're in the days of Moses. So you can find that in the book of Numbers. Let me go on to read. I am taking away the greater priesthood, leaving among the children of Israel only the lesser priesthood as a preparatory path of greater things. Let me go on to read this, then I can expound on that verse by what he means as a preparatory path of greater things. Behold, ye are not worthy of such greatness, because I have desired to attain a people for my name, a property that I could call my own, a nation of priests. But these do not qualify in the days of Moses. Behold, to this end I will continue to work at the end of all, when in the fullness of time I shall come. Then I will find upon the earth a people ready to receive me. Amen. Okay. Now, looking at verse 21, how it expounds on my people receiving the lesser priesthood as a preparatory path of greater things. When you come in the whole volume of the book, talking about this whole volume here, okay, as well as the other sacred of the books. Once you receive the salvation of Yah, who was the Messiah, he's the second Adam, known as Yahusha, and in Hebrew, Yahusha means I am he that saves and delivers. Once you receive him, as written in 1 John chapter 2, verse 27, and John chapter 14, chapter 15, and chapter 16, you will learn that the Spirit will teach you all things. Through his Spirit, he will show you the greater mysteries, the things that cannot be seen by your carnal eyes. It has to be open unto you. And through that, it shall lead you to the greater priesthood. When you read the Book of Mormon, it tells us there are three parts. Okay? So the part that we was the first part. And I'm telling y'all, the Father is so great on what he did in the first part because it relates to Daniel's chapter 12. And I want to hold off on that point. So I'm going to make a note to myself for me to take you to Daniel's chapter 12 so we can understand how the lesser priesthood will lead you to the greater one. Okay? All right. Sorry about that, y'all. Trying to get all my thoughts together because it's so much. But I want to give y'all a little bit at a time. All right. Let us keep reading. Now I'm back in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, looking at verse 14. But their minds were blind, for unto this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in the Messiah. So now we have come to the understanding, until you receive him, then that veil can be removed. Verse 15, but even unto this day, when Moses read, the veil is upon their heart. Do y'all hear that? The veil was upon their heart. Even to this day, the same as with the Israelites and Gentiles. That veil is still upon them. Verse 16, nevertheless, when it shall turn to the Lord, the veil shall be taken away. Now the Lord is that Spirit, And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Do y'all hear that? If we go where he goes, what? We shall what? Receive liberty. All right. But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as the Spirit of the Lord. And this will relate to 2 Corinthians chapter 15, looking at verse 39 to 58. 2 Corinthians chapter 15, looking at verse 39 to 58. But it goes back, I'm sorry. When you look at verse 18, what words should stand out to you? The same image. What that should remind you? Genesis chapter 1. He said, we shall make them in our image. So just as the Father and the Son has the glory upon them, why do you not think Adam and Eve did not have that glory? Now, as time persists, I remember reading it somewhere, but I have to find it. It's going to expound on that glory that was upon Adam and Eve that put them on a higher spiritual level. In other words, they was connected to the kingdom of heaven. And if you understand what I'm talking about, when I say connected to the kingdom of heaven, when you understand who is the kingdom of heaven, you will understand why they walk, they talk, they did everything as them, because it was made in their image. Therefore, they should look like them. And they should be covered in that crown of glory that shall never fade away, that is written in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 4. Okay, so we have some free time. I want you to take some time to meditate on 2 Corinthians chapter 3, looking at verse 13 through 18, because again, it goes back to Romans chapter 10, right? Now, another place I want to take you into the Bible before we go back to the Book of Mormon. I want us to go to the Book of Luke. Thank you, Father Yah. So, and after the Book of Luke, we go to Acts, because we're going to get an example how the Holy One can harden a person's heart. Okay, we have to understand the world that we're in now. And we know it is the principality of death and destruction who's ruling this world. So right now, at this time, this whole world is submerged in darkness. Now, I want you to go to Luke, I believe it's chapter 1, because it's going to expound more about this Holy One and how he shall bring you into liberty. Okay? Luke chapter 1. Let me see where to start reading. I'm going to start at 67. We're going to read down to verse 80. And his father Zacharias was filled with the Holy Ghost and prophesied, saying, notice this, y'all, with all the prophets, even the kings and the saints of Yah, what must take place? His spirit has to be upon you to either prophesy, to do the great talents that you possess, to even break down this word here. His spirit has to be upon you. You can tell those who have this spirit and who don't. You can just tell. The fruits that they bear shows, which reveal what? Their heart. But let us keep going. Verse 68. Blessed be Yahuwah God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people, and hath raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. Do you hear that? The Most High Yah raised up a horn in the house of David. And who was that horn? The Messiah, Yahusha HaMashyach. But he comes from what? The lineage of David. He is the fruit of his loins. The precept for that verse can be found in Psalms chapter 132, verse 18. Again, notice how the old bear witness to the new. They go hand in hand. Let us keep reading. Verse 70. And as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. Do y'all hear that? Oh my goodness. Let me read that again. As he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. When you read all these sacred books, you will learn that all of our forefathers, starting from Adam down from that righteous line, prophesied and written not only the things that will come, but they also talked about that Holy One, that blessed promised seed that would come from the loins of David. The precept for that can be found in Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 5, and Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 9. Let us keep reading. That we shall be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he sware to our father Abraham, that he would grant unto us, that we, being delivered out of the hands of our enemies, might serve him without fear. And that's very important, y'all. When you enter into this new covenant that was set up by the Messiah, as you submerge yourself in his words and you're under his spirit, you will soon have no fear of your enemies. That is another level that the fathers want us to get at. And in order to have no fear, what the Father is reminding me now, you have to know about his prophecies. You have to believe in his word. You have to believe in that first resurrection. And once you have the understanding of that, Satan cannot have no power over you. So we cannot have no fear in this. The only one to fear is our Father in heaven, for he can destroy the body and soul in hell, which is Sheol. That is the one we should have fear. We should not fear this principality of death and destruction. In other words, we should not fear death, but face death in the eye and say, do what you do. But that is not the end, but that is the beginning of what's to come. Okay. Let me read verse 74 again. That he would grant unto us that we, being delivered out of the hands of our enemy, might serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. And thou, child, shalt be called the prophet of the highest. And thou, child, shalt be called the prophet of the highest. For thou shalt go before the face of the Lord to prepare his ways, to give knowledge of salvation unto his people by the remission of their sins, through the tender mercy of our God, whereby the day spring from on high have visited us, to give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to give our feet in the way of peace. And the child grew and went strong in the spirit, and was in the desert to the day of his showing unto Israel. Give me 1 second, y'all. I want to check on one more thing. Okay. All right, if I'm reading this correct, let me make sure. I'm going to check on one more thing. Let me make sure I'm reading this correctly unto you. Okay. Parts of it parts of it does pertain to the Messiah, and parts of it to John the Baptist. Okay. And this was a prophecy that was given unto John's father. All right. Okay. I'm looking at Flemmy Creation, and I'm reading your comment. I'm going to have to meditate on your comment to understand what you're truly saying, because when you look at these principalities, as well as with the Father and the Son, there are many names. When you look at these sacred books, they are given to give us understanding of what they represent. Okay, let us keep going. All right. So, when you get some time, I want you to read Luke chapter 1. Like I said again, part of it pertains to John the Baptist, but as you see in verse 30, not verse 36, but verse 76, he would be the prophet of the highest, okay? Because he is to prepare the way for the Messiah, which he did. All right. And then parts of it will pertain to the Messiah, because as you know about the Messiah, he would be the blessed one to lead a people from darkness to light. All right. Now, for the last example, not last example, I'm sorry. For the example that I was talking to you earlier about the book of Acts, Shalom, we're going to look at how that Holy One, that Blessed One, unhardens the heart. And we're going to see what take place when a person receives the salvation of Yah. And that's in the book of Acts. Let's see here. And give me 1 second to find it. That's another example I found, but we want to go to the example. I believe it's in Acts chapter 16, verse 14. And then I would take you to Acts chapter 26, okay? So go to Acts chapter 16, verse 14. Okay, here's a great example of what take place when one received the salvation of Yah. Acts chapter 16, verse 14. And a certain woman named Lydia, a seller of purple, of the city of Tyre, which worship Yahuwah, heard us, whose heart the Lord opened, that she attended unto the thing which was spoken of Paul. And when she was baptized, and her whole house, she besought us, saying, if ye had judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come into my house and abide there. And she constrained with us. Now, when you look at verse 14, I want you to meditate on. Notice what happened to take place. It says here, whose heart, and we know Lord can mean master, and it's talking about the Messiah here, whose heart the Messiah opened. Another kind of example that you may already know of, think about the earth. In order for the seed to be planted, what must take place? The earth has to be unhardened. It's unhardened by what? Rain. And the rain represent what? The spirit. So the spirit must come into the place. And the spirit will go into one's heart and unhardens a person's heart. Therefore, from that point, then salvation can be received. Another thing I would like for you to read in the book of Acts as a to understand more about this salvation, to understand what takes place in you. I want you to go to Acts chapter 26, and I'm going to read a little higher, and we're going to go down to verse 18. So we're going to start with verse let us start with verse 12, and we'll read down to verse 18. Whereupon, as I went to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests, at midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me and them which journeyed with me. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me, saying in the Hebrew tongue, Saul, Saul, why persecuted thou me? Then that's a great example of what the Book of Mormon, what the Bible, and all the other sacred books, because we know the story about Paul. What they did back then, they're doing now. They have rejected the Messiah. All right, let's keep on reading. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And I said, who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Yahusha, whom thou persecutest. Do you see what happened when one is in darkness, when one is blind? Because see, Paul thought he was doing what was right based on what he understood from what he read. Do you see how hardened Paul's heart was? But it took the Spirit, that living word, to let him know you were on the wrong path. Verse 15. No, not verse 15. Verse 16. But rise and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness. Do you hear that? So the Messiah made Paul a minister and a witness. Both of these things which thou hast seen, and of those things in the which I will appear unto thee, delivering thee from the people and from the Gentiles, unto whom now I sent thee, to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light. Do you hear that? That is the commission, the authority that the Messiah has given unto Paul for the people. They are Gentiles and they are Israelites. What did he say unto Paul? He said, now I sent thee to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto God. So through Paul's ministry, which is the Most High ministry, okay, what should take place? The people, whether they're Israelite or Gentile, shall now be released from darkness and be brought into the light. Also, what we see that take place, they should no longer be under the power of Satan. They should be brought under the power of Yahuwah. Okay? Like I said, this thing that was happening now, when you go back in the days of Adam and his son, like Jared, Enoch, what the Book of Mormon was talking about, you would see it then too. The same thing would happen there too. But only a remnant got it, not the majority. For they remain in darkness and they remain under the power of Satan. Okay? But let us keep reading. That they may receive forgiveness of sins and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me. Now, y'all want to highlight that and meditate on that, because he says here, once you receive the forgiveness of sins and inheritance among them which are sanctified by my faith that is in me. Now, this go for Israelite and Gentile. Now, that is amazing. Okay. Now for the part that I said I would take you to, dealing with the book of Daniel, to understand how this lesser priesthood shall lead you to the greater one. Okay. That is the greatest mission that the Book of Mormon, this is the second part that we're in, because that seal has been opened now, because this is a time for us to come into now, because the fullness of the Gentiles has been fulfilled, of the first part. Okay. And I want to expound on that first part if I don't forget. Okay. If you can email me, sis, at followingthemessiah378@gmail.com, because I know as soon as this word is given, I won't have much time. But if you can email me, that will remind me, and then I can see what you're talking about. Okay. And it's listed in the video description box. Okay, we're going to Daniel's chapter 12. Because Daniel chapter 12 is going to touch on the verse that we shall go to in the words of Moroni, that I'm going to close out in this video. Okay. So Daniel chapter 12 is going to touch a part of it. Okay. Daniel chapter 12. Now you're probably wondering how this lesser priesthood that was given unto the nation of Israel, that fell upon the tribe of Levi, and we know the sons of Aaron was the only one that can take the office or the position of the high priesthood until the coming of the Messiah, who brought the Masoretic order, or what's the word I'm looking for, y'all? Reestablish it again. Okay. All right. Daniel chapter 12. When we look at verse 7 here, I'll read out loud to you. And I heard a man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for 8 times and a half. And when he had, and when he my tongue getting twisted, I'm sorry. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Now, you want to highlight that verse, and you want to underline, scattered the power of the holy people. Now, you're going to begin to understand what the Father means by that when you read the book of the Seal Book of Mormon. Because the Seal Book of Mormon, once you read that, then you're going to understand what took place also through those apostles who was ordained in this book as well. Because there's 2 parts to this. Remember, there's 2 sticks. You have the northern kingdom, they had their part, and then you have the southern kingdom who had their part. All right. I'm telling you, the Father, oh my God, y'all, what's the word I'm looking to describe him right now? When you understand what he was doing when he scattered them into captivity, when he scattered them among the heathen, what would take place? And what would take place would lead not only some Israelites, because we know the nation as a whole is not there yet, but some of the Jews as well as the Gentiles would graduate, going from a lesser priesthood to a greater priesthood. So when we look at Daniel chapter 12, verse 7, it says here that he scattered the power of the holy people. Now, when we come in the whole volume of the book, we know this for a fact, and also in the still Book of Mormon. The Israelites who was commissioned or ordained by Yahuwah and the Messiah. And that same way they was ordained is the same way what happened with the Messiah. Messiah set the first example. Okay. All of the prophets, prophetess, and the servants would have that same manner of mannerism that fell upon them. To understand that mannerism that I'm talking about, okay. With these comments, y'all, I'm not going to look at them right now because I'm trying to stay focused so I can get you where I need to get you to. All right. So let me go back to what I was thinking about. When he scattered the power of the holy people, these are ones that was ordained by him to carry out the gospel, the original gospel that was set in the days of the sons of Adam. Okay. And we know they were Israelites, they were Jews. All right. And we know there was a part that was given unto the northern kingdom, as well as the part that was given unto the southern kingdom, which is the house of Israel and the house of Judah. All right. Now, to understand that verse, you're going to have to go to the prophet Ezekiel. All right. And when you go to the prophet Ezekiel writings, which is chapter 11, this is what he mean by that. When we look at verse 16, it says here, therefore say, thus saith Yahuwah God, although I have cast them although I have cast them far off among the heathen, and although I have scattered them among the countries, yet will I be to them as a little sanctuary in the countries where they shall come. Now, we know for a fact, Messiah ordained us now to be the temple, the tabernacle now, because the physical tabernacle has been abolished in the earth. All right. So this is how the Israelites who were scattered among the heathen became the power, in other words, because they contained the power within them. They contained the kingdom of heaven within them. And the only way they contained it, it was for those who had received the salvation of Yah, which is the Messiah. They are the ones who was ordained and commissioned by Yah to build the church of the Messiah upon the earth. Now we get into the part of the Book of Mormon now. Okay, because I had talked about this before in another video, but for those who are new, this is something that you may not know because of what the Pharisees and Sadducees and Herodians of today is not telling you, because all they've been focused on is birthright and nationality. They have not graduated. They have not seen the bigger picture, because if they understand the what was, then they will understand the is and what is yet to come. Okay, because their problem is they want to shun the Gentiles, but you don't understand the Most High bigger picture, his plan that he had in the beginning. Okay, because remember, I keep telling y'all, we're going back to what the Creator originally planned for Adam before he fell. See, that's what we're going back to. But that's the picture that they cannot see because of the hardness of their heart. The veil is still on them. All right. I'll put my marker here. I got to, so I won't lose my place. Now let us go back to the words of Moroni, excuse me, y'all, because my tongue is terrible when it comes to pronounce certain words. And we're going to look at verse 21. Here we go. Verse 21. As for me, the Lord made me to see when I was projecting the seals for display, for these plates, contained two cylindrical metal pieces that would transpose all sealed set of plates, but with the two eternal heads to contain the remainder of the plates, where there would be another 6 of seal, according to the circumstances that the Messiah will reveal them in the times designated by him. Do y'all hear that? So there will be certain parts of the books that will remain sealed. That's that third part I'm telling y'all, that will only be revealed by the Messiah when he comes. So I also, that what the Father reminded me is to warn you, be careful what book you read, because if it's not ordained for you to read it, don't go in it. And the book of the sealed book of Mormon will tell you what books not to go in. It's there. Okay. Let us keep on reading. According to the circumstances that the Messiah will reveal them in the times designated by him, after his coming at the temple in Zion. Now that's the part you want to highlight. When he come, he will come to Zion, because that's where his temple shall be. All right, for his 1,000-year reign. All right. Behold, this come after this book which I have spoken, which shall be revealed to the Gentiles, that they may repent of their abominations and sins. And so shall there be still other records in this set of plates, which shall remain united by these two inner heads, and must be sealed again. I'm going to say that again, y'all. Must be sealed again by the one who will write the record of this first part, because not everything will be revealed in his days with the opening of the first seals. There's a total of 7 seals, y'all. Okay, this FYI. In order to preserve its content, so that he will reveal the rest of the plates when the Lord find it prudent in the future, when in the end the children of the covenant, which will come after the translation of this first set, to regroup in the single fold under the name given to the chosen ones, for which your church should be known in the last days. To understand all of that, you got to go to Romans chapter 10. And it's going to tie you back to what the prophet Isaiah wrote. Okay? Because in the first part, let me find out higher so I can repeat what he said here. Which shall be first revealed to the Gentiles. How did he reveal it to the Gentiles? Think about what the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Think about what the house of Israel did and what the house of Judah did. Okay? The Messiah ordained his apostles to go out in the earth to build what? His church. So in that part, who would be drawn in mass amount? Because we know as a nation of people, my people rejected. Okay? But through their rejection, the door was open unto the Gentiles. Okay? So the Gentiles, but as written here, they too had to repent of their abominations and sins. And so there shall be still other records in the set place which shall remain united by these two in the head. So that is the first part. That is what had to take place. That what the book of Luke was talking about, dealing with the fullness of the Gentiles. Now, when we look at those who translated the book of Mormon, okay, these sacred books, they was Gentiles. In that video that we did on My Dream 1885 and the Sealed Book of Mormon and other sacred books, I give you the chapter and the verse that will show you how the Father will use the Gentile to translate these sealed books in another tongue. Okay, in the tongue that my people do not speak. But through our captivities, we was made to speak this tongue. See, the Father know what he was doing. See, the Father had a deeper plan here. Okay. Now, we are in the second part because the first part has been fulfilled now. The majority, when I say majority, I mean those who are chosen by the Most High Yah of the Gentile nation, they have come in now. Because before them, their heart too had to be what? In other words, the veil had to be removed so they can understand some of these things now. All right. Woo. So now they're at a level now where they are willing and ready to receive. So now the second part is open. The second part, which we're reading now. This is the second part right here. The second part that we're reading now. Now, going back to the title, this second part will bring you or will make you to become pure and pleasing unto the Most High Yah. Now, the only way you won't graduate to the second part if that veil wasn't removed. Do you see how we got to go back to, I call it, to the basic steps. If you have not received the basic step first, you cannot receive this. You're not going to get it. You're not going to grasp it. You're going to reject it. So for those who do not understand, you need to go back to the basic. Go back to Romans 10. You need to allow yourself to become submissive under the Spirit, which is the Messiah. Okay? That's where it's all began. Because if you have not, what's the word I'm looking for? If you have not gotten to that level, you're going to remain where you are, blind. And then that's going to cost you the greatest inheritance. And then it's going to, then those who wait, well, what's the word I'm looking for here? For those who are alive at the appointed time of the Messiah, who had to wait for his coming to believe these things, your inheritance will not be greater as those who come in by faith. Okay? That's something to really think about. So we begin to understand Daniel chapter 12, how he scattered the power of the holy people and his ultimate plan of doing that. Okay, because we know why they were scattered, because they are iniquities, but it was something else deeper behind that. See, the Father knew what he was doing. He had to bring in the Gentiles. And when we were scattered among them, you can read many books, okay? The way we walk, the way we live, it intrigued the Gentiles, where they wanted to know more about this God we serve. So guess what happened? It caused them to have their heart to be softened and ready to receive. Now that we have came into that fullness, now we're getting into the second part, okay? Because remember, there's 3 parts to this. Now that we get in the second part, now you're going to have to be willing to become like that unleavened bread, to empty yourself of all the things that man has taught you, and allow yourself to be filled with the fullness of God, just like it happened on the day of Pentecost. For he now will teach you all things, and you will follow his doctrines now. That's what this book does. It opens up your eyes and let you see how the churches of today has went left. They had strayed for him. Okay? Even when you read about, what's his name, Joseph Smith, and the church that he established, because I'm still getting more in their history, and I have seen how they may have had good intentions, but they went left. See, some wickedness has contaminated their churches. Okay. As well as what we can see what happened when Paul and them built these churches. We can see what the Romans did. Okay. So now in this second part, and I say this again, it is now to bring you to a level now to remove the leaven of the Pharisees, of the Sadducees, of man, of Satan now. Because you know, with them, they have been mixing truth with lies for so long that you actually believe in your heart this is the truth, but it's not. So that's what this book does now. It is to get you to remove the leaven of wickedness. So when you become empty, then you can be filled with the fullness of Yah. Him, the Spirit, will fill you, and you now will become that puffed up bread. Okay. But this time you will have his truth. You won't be contaminated with the precepts of men. All right. So now I'm going to take you to the last part. And again, the Book of Mormon link is listed in the video description box where you can click on it and you can follow along with me. I'm in the words of Moroni. And the verse we're going to look at is verse 44. But I am going to read up a little higher to verse 43. Okay. Will happen then that the Book of Mormon will be, as prophesied by the prophets, open in 3 periods of time, to begin the arrival of the time of the end. When then the prince of darkness ruling the earth in those days will have no power over this land of promise. Now the land of promise he's talking about is Osiris. You will learn that the northern kingdom, the ones that was taken out of Samaria, that was in the Assyrian captivity, was brought over here to Osiris. Osiris means the little land. It is the land that was far over many great waters. And today, what the Gentiles call it is Canada, North America, South America, Mexico, the islands, and the islands. That's the lands of where the northern kingdom came. Okay. And notice what it says here, that the prince of darkness was ruling the earth those days, but will have no power over this land of promise. Let us continue to read. You'll find out what he means by that. So that there would be on this earth the opening of the first determined time, and a light shine in the darkness forever upon the sons of men. And from there on, many will seek true knowledge. Okay. And when you look at the history of the churches that was established in America, what did they do? They went out throughout the whole world to preach the gospel of the Messiah, based on to what their understanding at that time, which goes into what the Bible say. We read Mark chapter 13, verse 10, and we will look at Luke chapter 21, verse 24, but then with the fullness of the Gentiles. What does it specifically say? It says that until this gospel is published to all nations, it has done that. through by what these churches over here. I'm not saying the other churches in the old world didn't have a part in it either. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying to you, when you look at the liberties or in other words, we're not restricted in comparison to the other countries. Because, you know, people can't even worship and serve the Most High Yah and believe in his son, Yahusha HaMashyach, in certain countries without being put to death. So over here, we don't have that restriction. We can believe in him and his son. Okay. So already when we look at verse 43, we can see that being fulfilled. Okay. So let me read this again one more time. When it happened then that the Book of Mormon will be, as prophesied by the prophets, open in 3 periods of time, to begin with the arrival of time of the end, when then the prince of darkness was ruling the earth in those days, but we have no power over this land of promise. So the gospel can go forth freely, so that there will be on this earth the opening of the first determined time, a light shine in the darkness forever upon the sons of men. And from there on, many will seek true knowledge. Okay? Verse 44. And having passed 1,290 days since the continuous sacrifice was removed from the altar, then, as regards the remnant of darkness, a light from distant lands will shine from afar on the holy people of God, with the opening of the first seal, and a period of appointed times will begin, when many will be cleansed and whitened and approved, but the wicked will certainly continue to act wickedly, and none of them will understand, but the insightful will understand. I'm going to break that paragraph to you down. Do you know when that paragraph talk about the 1,290 days when to cease the daily sacrifice, what that should remind you of? Because it goes with the book of Daniel's. Daniel's chapter 7, Daniel's chapter 11, Daniel's chapter. When you look at the prophet Daniel, he gave us the first anti-Messiah, the first one that was against the covenant of Yah. Who was that first one? I'm going to let my listeners here to see, can you answer the question. Who is that first one that came on the scene that Daniel talked about that will be the anti-Messiah? The first one. Through him, this is where you had the cease of the daily sacrifice. Do I have anyone that would try to answer it? Give you a little hint. You can find the answer in the book of Maccabees. It tells you about that wicked one, that first one that is against the covenant. Okay? Let's see if anyone can answer it. Do I have anyone that would be willing to try? All right. When you read the book of Maccabees, first, second, there's the first, second, third, and fourth book, and you begin to understand what Daniel's talking about. When you look at the captivities of the Greeks, oh, he was wicked, y'all. He did some terrible things, and he was truly a child of Satan. For he truly kept my people from not keeping the covenant. He was the one that killed, I believe it was 7 sons of that woman. Hebrews 11. I know it's in the book of Maccabees that talked about her. He was also the one that forced my people to eat pork. Oh, y'all, he was wicked. And he had no regards or no honor to our God. His name is Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes. It was very wicked. Okay. And when we look at verse 44 here, it points out that when many will be cleansed and whitened and improved, it relates to what Daniel was talking about. When we look at Daniel chapter 11, and we're going to start with, let me see here. We're going to start with verse, we're going to start with verse 33 and 34. Now, the Greeks was one of the nations that caused the daily sacrifice to cease. And when you read a book of the Maccabees, when you look at the time that when it ceased to the time they was able back to recover it, I did get a count of 1,290 days. But when the Romans came on the scene, which is the second desolation, which is the destruction of Jerusalem, the daily sacrifice was put to an end. Okay. But when you look at the time of the Greeks under the reign of Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes, who called the daily sacrifice to cease for that period of time, you will see of the trials and tribulation that my people went through, which shall give you some understanding, which shall give you understanding of how the Father will purify you, just as wheat is purified, just as gold is purified and refined, and the same thing with syrup. So let us read verse, I guess I want to, I know what, I want to read at verse 30 then. Let us read at verse 30 down to 35. Okay. For the ships of Kittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And the arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. Again, you want to read the book of Maccabees because they follow the same method too. Okay. Verse 32. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Okay. So remember in a verse that we read about we should have no fear. Again, we're in that time. We're going to have to stand up for Yah despite what they do, despite what the wicked shall do. Verse 33. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by famine, and by fame, by captivity, and by spoil many days. Now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries. And some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the end of time, because it is yet for a appointed time. So when we study about the captivities that my people have went through, we're beginning to learn it is for what? A purification to take place. So they can what? Become white. And white in the Hebrew language is Laban. And another word for white in the Hebrew language is Sach. Through the trials and tribulation of the Jews, it is to produce a righteous people unto the Most High Yah. Okay? Because as we see evidence of that, we can see the outcome of it. But now we have Gentiles who have received the salvation of Yah. They now has come in because of the Jews being spread among them. Right? When we also look at Daniel chapter 12, for it also goes on to say in verse 9, we're going to start at verse 9 and read down. We're going to start at verse 8 and read down. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. Now you want to highlight that because now we're seeing how close we're getting to the end, because now through the Book of Mormon, the second part has been opened unto us. Do you see how close we are now? Because through the Book of Mormon, it would tell you that with the third part is not going to be open unto us, which is the mystery of God, which is the vision of Jared, which is the sealed book of Moses, will not be open until the Messiah come and be with us in his temple at Zion. So we're close. Let me read at verse 10. And many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly. And none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Now I'm going to hold off reading verse 11 and 12 because I'm going back to the Book of Mormon, because the Book of Mormon is going to touch on it. But when you have some time, meditate on Daniel 11, Daniel 12, Daniel 7. Because now we're seeing that through the trials and tribulation of the Jews, this is the same thing that the Messiah was talking about. We can see what is going to happen now. Through these trials and their tribulation, it is to what? Purify us, to try us, and to refine us. We also have learned today that through our captivity, it caused a great grafting to take place. The grafting of the wild olive tree, which are the Gentiles. So we can see that taking place. I said the Father is oh God, y'all, he's so great because he's bringing back to what he originally made things to be. Okay. So now let us go back to the Book of Mormon and look at the words of Moroni and go to verse 45. For it goes on to say, I'm sorry, y'all. Let me go back and read this up higher. Let us read verse 44 again. And having passed 1,290 days since the continuous sacrifice was removed from the altar, then, as regards the remnant of darkness, a light from distant lands would shine from afar on the holy people of Yahuwah. With the opening of the first seal, a period of appointed times will begin, when many will be cleansed and whitened and approved. But the wicked will certainly continue to act wickedly. So we can see that now. They still doing wickedness and ain't learning nothing. Okay? And none of them will understand. So none of the wicked will understand, but the insightful will understand. So we will understand about these times and what's going on. We can see how they are killing us, lynching us, doing also terrible things. But we will understand that this will not be forever. For soon the harvest of the wheat is coming, and the chaff shall be separate from the wheat, and they shall be burned. But before that take place, he has to redeem his people Israel. Okay? The Book of Mormon will elaborate more on that. He's still working his vineyard, y'all, bringing more in before the very end will come. Verse 45, blessed are those who remain faithful until the arrival of the 1,335 days, when the third and last book is opened by our Lord and our advocator together, the Father. Yea, Yahusha HaMashyach. So be it. Do you understand that? So when the 1,335 days, okay, until the arrival of that is when that is when the third and last book will be open. So we'll wait for that time to come into his fullness. All right. So to sum everything up in this word today, when we look at the veil must be removed in order us to become pure and pleasing to the Most High Yah, it goes back for what was set up in the beginning. We have to receive his son. He is the tabernacle of witness. He is the second Adam. He is the Son of God. For he will establish his church upon the earth. For the time has come now, for the people are ready to receive him. They are ready for the truth. For their heart is no longer hardened. For they have received the circumcision of the heart that is not made by man's hands. They have been born of the water and of the Spirit, and they will be his bride. And the other group, a part of that, is the 144,000. But for the nation of Israel, Yahuwah will have mercy upon you. That's what he means, that he will send his hand a second time. Through your trial and tribulation that is here upon the earth, it shall refine you and purify you and make you white. For those who are the chosen to come back into his holy land, for those that he will lead into the wilderness, he shall what? Give you a new heart and a new spirit. And then after that wicked one, the last anti-Messiah, after he is taken down by the Messiah with his army of hosts and the 144,000, then the Gentiles of the earth shall bring the remainder of the house of Israel. Do y'all see what the Father's doing? And when the Messiah shall reign his 1,000 years, he shall establish the order of Melchizedek. He shall bring the order of Enoch, and we shall be the church of Messiah. Y'all, it's going to be a great time. And in that time, that third book, y'all, is going to be open. And we're going to understand the mystery of God that is written in Revelation chapter 10. It's talked about that, y'all. And then we're going to understand the vision of Jared, what he saw. And then we're going to hear about what Moses written in those sealed books. Y'all, it's going to be a time, because at that time when he reigns upon the earth, righteousness is going to prevail over evil. I have said enough in this video. When you have some time, read the book of Mormon, the sealed book of Mormon, because I meant to show y'all this. Then the first part has been given to bring the Gentiles in. Then the second part has been released so we can what? Be free from the precepts of men and receive the truth of Yah. So we can what? Attain that status that we lost, the status of Adam. Who is Adam? The son of Adam. This book here talks about that greatly, of how we shall become completed, O bride, in 144. This is the complete gospel of Mary Magdalene. And this book tells us she was the beloved companion of the Messiah. Great time, y'all, coming. But in this time now, we need to continue to what? Purge ourselves of the leaven of the wicked ones, so we can be filled with the leaven of God. And then once we are filled with that leaven of God, then we can go out and preach the gospel. What is that gospel? It's about the Messiah. To preach about his church that's coming upon the earth, what he's going to establish. But we were already partaking in it and did not know, such as the washing of the feet, the drinking of the wine, the eating of the bread, the water baptism, the Holy Spirit baptism. We were already partaking in it. That's what the lesser priesthood led to. It led to the coming of the Messiah when he established the new covenant. And through that new covenant, it brought in the Gentiles. And now we shall be soon seeing the coming of the nation of Israel. Blessed time. All right. Continue to preach that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, for it's truly at hand. Make sure the people receive salvation. Chapter 10, and baptize the people in the name of Yahusha HaMashyach. But the Lamb set the example of the Holy Spirit baptism, and the apostles continue both. Shalom.